My name is Janet Kennedy, and I'm running for City Council in the 5th District, and I'm mother of a son and daughter. I grew up in West Duluth. They grew up in West Duluth. We all went to Denfeld, played hockey. We spent some time living in Riverside. We came here back in the 60s because my father was in the Air Force.
Okay, sure.
And so we've lived here since then, and come to know Western Duluth as more or less my home or my town or my place since the 5th grade. And so that's who I am. And
okay. And what do you do for a living? Or?
Well, right now I'm co-founding member and developing a nonprofit. My most recent job was Director of Physical, Occupational, and Speech Therapy at a local facility.
Okay.
And so I'm excited about having time to change my profession. I did that for 23 years.
Wow, long time.
Yeah. Excited about the nonprofit that we're building for the community.
What would the nonprofit be doing?
It's called the Cross Cultural Alliance of Duluth, and it's a new nonprofit, and it's built on collaboration of cultures and working through equity issues. And there'll be more about that. We're just forming and building that. We're building our mission, so it's from the ground.
Just starting out.
Just starting out. So I'm excited about that, and how we can lend to some of the organizations in fostering equity, an equity lens, and more people within their organizations.
Sounds like it could fit well with the city council position.
Definitely.
For you. Yeah, okay.
Definitely.
Well, what was it that kind of prompted you to say, I want to represent my neighborhood, my area of town, my hometown?
Well, for me, it's about valuing everybody and having that voice that will listen, will be reliable and respectful, and inclusive. I think it's important for the city to also collaborate. And I don't believe we've had a lot of that in the last few years. And so it's important for quality of life and essential services and decision making, and that every voice is important and everyone is valued and needs to be heard. And I want people to be empowered by the fact that your voice, no matter what your economic status, no matter what your ethnicity is, your heritage, is just valued. And so I see that sense of bringing that to the city council and people feeling okay to be where they're at and okay to voice their opinions and ideas.
Okay. What do you see as kind of in your opinion, the biggest issue facing the city and the city council right now? And we do have some issues we'll touch on, but I'm curious what you see as number one. I'm
just going to read to some of the critical challenges that I find, especially in District 5. Is the investment that's going on. And we just need to make sure that when we're using public money, that it's invested in what it needs to be invested in. And that includes the infrastructure, that includes our public utilities, that includes our fire and police, which is a lot of what our budget takes, and administration. But just making sure we're using that funding and it's being implemented in other maybe newer programs or ideas or brought to the table, and how we're developing and implementing that.
Have you seen some examples where maybe the public money isn't being used as well as it should be or could be?
Well, at this point right now, I don't have any ideas, but it's certainly things I'm looking into and talking with city councilors and other decision makers and getting involved in learning about what a city councilor needs to know and do. And even ongoing as a city councilor, I always know there's going to be people there that would be able to help me through those processes and finding out, as a leader, it's not about how much you know, about who who to ask. And then
the city council is about to have quite a bit of turnover. There's quite a few, was it 3 incumbents that aren't running again? How do you hope to see the council's direction changing or being after the election? How do you see yourself fitting into that direction?
That's very exciting because change is always good. I believe change is good. In the fact that our city and our communities are growing and thriving. And so there's a pulse about it. And sometimes when you have the same folks making the same decisions in a lens that is maybe limited, I think a turnover and having new voices that are younger and that come from different backgrounds helps to build better decision making. It actually opens up a wider lens of different views, and I think that's important to capture as many people as we can in our decision making and the importance of how that their lives can be affected.
I think you kind of touched on the top issue, the top challenge in your district in Western Duluth. What is it though? Is it crime? Is it the conditions of the streets? What is it?
Well, I would say what I've heard are the streets. I've heard there's some safety issues. We need more housing out there. Right now we have a third of our people, a third of working people and working families making $25,000 or less, and even more in poverty. And so that's an important issue that we need to look at as a body and as a city and as organizations coming together, and how we can help lift people up out of that. And just make sure that we're not fighting over a little bit when way on the other end there's probably a lot more to be had, and that we come together and move along. So yeah.
Housing was on our list of things we wanted to ask you about. There are a couple of housing summits have been held in the last 2 years, identifying both a lack of affordable and workforce housing. Are you saying the need in District 5 is more the affordable housing? Is that what you're seeing?
I would say, I'm going to say all and above, because we need to mix people together. We need to try not to segregate people. When you segregate folks, even in maybe a higher income or lower income, there tends to be a static community that isn't open to other ideas, I would say, and even other people sometimes.
Okay. Let's ask about the library. That was an issue this past year with a study, engineer study that said tens of millions may be needed either to replace it or to fix it. What do you think should happen with the library?
The libraries are one of those places that have to do with quality of life. Now, it could be said that it's not necessarily a need, but it is a quality of life, and many people have grown up with the library. Many have said that maybe books are going away, but I've talked with people who work at the library, and I see the people who use the library. I think it needs to be thought of in a different way as far as more than just books. It needs to be thought of as a community place. So the current building, I would say, has its challenges in that it's not very efficient in its use for electricity, for heat, for water, public utilities. So something has to be done. Was it a renovation only, or is it a new building? That's going to have to make that'll be made by, I guess what the public wants is the most important, and what is the need of that place, and then also looking at the budget.
Sure.
We have to weigh all of those, but yeah.
I think the term you use, quality of life things, and I think there are a couple other issues that fall under that: the Spirit Mountain, the Lake Superior Zoo, both of which were in Western Duluth in your district, and both of which have come kind of under fire because they're maybe not supporting themselves, not generating enough revenue, taking tourism taxes. What do you think of? Should we keep supporting those places?
For now, it sounds like the people, and what I've heard, they want the zoo and Spirit Mountain. And so, again, looking at what the needs of the community are, and also how can that benefit the city. I believe there'll be more information to come with all of those, and so I have my ears open, and I'm talking to people, and I'm sitting in the meetings. And so I think there's more to come with that. I can't give you a definite answer. I'm not sure if anybody could at this point.
Well, no, but you do consider those assets to the community?
I think they're assets to the community and assets to the city, yes.
Relations between the city of Duluth and the Fond du Lac Band with regard to the casino have been pretty strained, I think, with sharing revenues and the court decisions. How important is it that we come back together and that we kind of strengthen those ties again with the band?
I think it's vitally important, and I really want to work towards that, especially working with the Cross-Cultural Alliance of Duluth, and that we have leaders from all heritages, and that anytime we sever a relationship or a bridge that has a high impact and high population, it does a disservice to everyone. And so I believe it is important to repair that relationship.
And how can we do it?
I believe many times it's just giving people time, just stepping back a little bit and allowing people to, feel like they've been heard, allowing people to have time to come to a realization of some things, and whatever that may be. for everyone involved, and then coming back together slowly and rebuilding a relationship. And that takes time.
Sure.
Yeah.
The dollars and cents question with regard to that is the city of Duluth is no longer getting a share of casino revenues, and that had been a source of funding for street repairs. And how can Duluth continue to fund street repairs? Obviously, you see that as a big need.
Yes.
Where can that money come from?
Well, right now, I believe it's coming from the half and half tax. Mm-hmm. And so with that, whenever you have increased fees, and that's coming actually from the tourism. So it doesn't have a direct effect on people's pocketbooks that live in Duluth, but we need to make sure if we need to change that in some way. Well, although I shouldn't say that, because anytime we go down to Canal Park, I'll just use Canal Park or any other tourism place, we're paying that tax as well.
Sure.
But you know, right now it seems to be working. Do we need to look at that again? I'm not sure. You know, there's other ways to bring in revenues, mm-hmm. as far as you know, maybe some bonding. Sometimes we can use property taxes to offset that, because that actually, you can recoup money. Individuals can recoup money. But and then there's the fees. Fees are good if they have a sunset date. Yeah. But fees actually will, like I had said, will hurt people right in their pocketbooks as far as making the difference between buying a gallon of milk and not. And so that needs to be considered as far as how people are being affected when we do that.
I apologize if I didn't ask that question very well. Tourism taxes, of course, aren't used for street repairs, but for things like Spirit Mountain and those sorts of amenities. But you did mention the street repair fee that was just enacted, I think, this last year, and at the same time, the street light fee sunset. So that would be a good example. It sounds like you think. And
I've been working on learning about this, and these are things I know that I would have to learn more about as a city councilor. So I have the concepts and getting them in the right places. Definitely open to learning from you guys and other city leaders and administration when it comes to those questions and those specifics. But,
sure. No, I understand. It sounds like you have a very good handle. How big a problem is crime and heroin trade and drug dealing, things like that? Other candidates for a different office have been bringing that up, but curious your take on how big a problem that is for Duluth.
Well, for Duluth, it's been an ongoing problem for years. I mean, we're at the port city. We have a huge highway, and so I see people as seeing this as a way to get drugs or sex trade here. And so it is an important issue that I know I've been looking at through other organizations, and we're talking about it. And so I don't have any specifics, but I do know it's a big problem. And I believe that when we come together, we'll be able to tackle that and figure that out, from organizations through St. Louis County, through the city, through some nonprofits that are working on that.
Probably one of the biggest items in the city budget is fire department and core services, fire department, police department, public safety sorts of things. Right. Would you anticipate any changes, or would you propose any changes to the ways those things are funded?
I wouldn't be sure on how to answer that at this point, but that would be another question that once I'm a city councilor, I would look at the budget. I would talk with fire and police. I would talk with other administrators and other organizations and find out what the best way to continue and or enhance if we need to.
John, did you want to ask?
Yeah. Do you have any idea how many meetings you're responsible for going to as a city councilor over a year?
I don't know the number over the year, but I know there's mandated, there's certain meetings that we have to go to, such as with St. Louis County, such as with the legislators when we're looking for state monies, definitely collaborating with the school board. I know there's a retreat that is required, and so all those are important. And I'm sure there's many more meetings that are, that you would have to meet with, especially when learning about the administration and how the city runs. And those would be vitally important to be able to make a really good decision about, funding or jobs or, other things we need to decide. So, public works, and there's a lot of meetings. Do you have any idea?
I know, yeah, it's about average is a little over 2 a week.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And so it's over 100 meetings a year
Right.
now.
Yeah. And for me, my kids are grown. I don't have anyone at home except for my dog. So, and although he doesn't, I guess he's okay when I leave because he seems pretty happy when I come back.
That's the neighbors, they would know.
Yeah, right. That's the neighbors.
You brought up meetings though with the county and with the school board. Talk about ways the city can partner better with other government entities like the school board, like St. Louis County.
I think sitting in the meetings and just understanding the dynamics of what the job is that needs to be done for the city and for the well-being of the people, and how that can affect me and decision makers, and how they can affect like my decision as a city councilor. But also, I mean, there's funding sources that we have to work together on to bring to the city. And so having those good, respectful communications and working together to make this a great city is very important.
Perfect. Anyone else?
No, I guess just a comment on the county and city relationship. I worked for St. Louis County. I was a clerk of the county board, so I saw a lot of this. There is a lot of collaboration between certain departments, for instance, highway and city public works, but generally there's some, what I would call, conflict. Some of it's a north-south, some of it's
Right.
different things. Do you see yourself as a facilitator, try to get that, more, I don't know, collaborative, cooperative, or anything? Do you have any suggestions or any plans on that?
I would say that I am. I would say that even though we maybe don't agree or we have a difference of opinion, there's always a coming together because there's always some common need that we need to accomplish, and that we need to come together for that at the very least, and then go our separate ways. But with that being said, once you begin working with someone, you begin to build rapport, and you begin to understand each other's ideas and even issues that maybe we could work on together. But definitely I do see myself as that person.
Okay. I think there are 4 candidates running for the District 5 seat, including the incumbent. What sets you apart? What makes you different? Why should voters support Janet Kennedy, both in the primary coming up and then again in the general election? And that's kind of going to be our closing question.
So for me, living and growing up in West Duluth and in Duluth in general, I have a real heart for advocacy and organization. It's time that we have a reliable, proactive voice, and I'm very proactive in that I'm not waiting for things to happen. I like to make things happen, but there's also that I need to make sure I'm making things happen within the constraints of what I'm allowed as far as a city councilor. Sure. But one of the biggest things is just valuing people and valuing everybody and getting back to our most important resource, which is the human resource. Because when we're all the leaders and we're all making decisions for the better of the community and for the better of the people when we go to work every day. And that's the same thing, and the same thing we need to hold when we're sitting on the city council or any other board or commission.